hope you can hear me. I suppose I should share my screen. I'm going to do that now. All right, so yeah, my name is Ravi Murugesan. I work for INASP. I know it is a little bit of a difficult acronym to pronounce. It actually stands for the International Network for Advancing Science and Policy, quite a long name. INASP is a nonprofit based in Oxford, UK. I work from South India. I'm an associate. I work with the Authorate project. I'll tell you a little more about that. Anyway, this talk is all about a particular initiative that we undertook recently about translating course content. And we had a group of learners taking this course. And I want to focus on the English to Vietnamese aspect of how that went. We also had some learners taking, going through the course and translating into French, but I'm not going to cover that. In fact, it's actually, we have more feedback from the Vietnamese participants, so I thought it would make for a good presentation. We have a project called AuthorAid. Through this project, we run massive open online courses in research writing. Basically writing research papers for publication in peer-reviewed journals. And that's a hot topic around the world. Academics around the world need to be writing and publishing research papers. It's part of life. And there's a large demand for training on this topic. In the past year, we've seen, while participants come from around the world, lately we've seen a lot of participants from Vietnam. We've tried to understand why. It looks like it is being promoted through Facebook and through word of mouth, which is great. We're happy to see that. Recently, a few months back, we invited some of these Vietnam-based participants to join another course, a short course on academic writing skills. And this course came with an automated translation feature, which is what I'm going to talk about. So I hope by attending this talk, you'll get a sense of how this works, whether it might be useful for your own context. So that's my hope by presenting this. Two parts to this presentation. The technical aspect of how to set it up, how to set up automated translation using a combination of Google Cloud Translation and Moodle plugins. And the second part, where I go over the feedback that we received from Vietnam-based participants on the quality of the translated content. So first, how to set this up. Google Cloud Translation is setting that up is the very first step. You may have heard of it. I think everybody has heard of Google Translate. This is not the same thing. It's not Google Translate. I mean, there are certainly similarities, and it is part of Google, but it's a Google Cloud product. And to access it, you need to go to cloud.google.com. And there are a lot of products over there. I mean, it's just like AWS has many products. Google Cloud also does. I don't know that much about Google Cloud. I just know about this cloud translation product. It's machine translation. Now, if you ask me, is it better than the regular Google Translate? I actually don't know. That's a different topic. It's just to work with Moodle. For Moodle to Google to kind of speak to each other, you need to use Google Cloud Translation. So you can learn about it. The thing is, it's not really free, but if you sign up, you get usually a few $100s in free credit. And that's what I've used. And I think that actually covers the cloud translation charges for a pilot. It certainly is good enough. So to set up Google Cloud Translation, go to cloud.google.com and You'll see a way to create an API key. Now, again, if you have used such systems before, it's not that difficult, but if you haven't, it can seem a bit daunting. What do all these things mean? So I will, yeah, if you need technical support to set this up, you could speak with someone at your organization to get it set up for you. So it is, it's about creating an API key. You will see an option to do that right on the dashboard of Google Cloud. And after that, yeah, your API key is a random string. I've hidden this for security. This is my API key. So it'll show up, and you can edit the API key to make it more secure. For example, you can restrict it to certain websites, as in where can this API be called from. So you can restrict it to particular websites or IP addresses, or you can restrict it to particular Google Cloud products. So I have restricted it to the Cloud Translation API, as you can see where the bottom arrow is pointing. That's it, really. It might seem, if you're not used to Google Cloud, it might seem a bit technical, but it's not a lot of steps. It's you can do it very quickly. But the Moodle side, that's where to actually get the whole thing up and working, there is more to do. On the Moodle site, you would first look into installing some plugins. Now, there is a I did this back in April, 3 months back. At that time, I had to use these two plugins from the Moodle plugins database: Content Translation Filter and Content Translation Manager. However, at this point, as of today, or maybe in the past few weeks, these have been superseded by something called the Moodle Translations Filter. And when I last checked a few days back, it was not available in the Moodle plugins database, but it can be installed from GitHub. I haven't tried it because I made this presentation based on my experience a few months back. But it is reassuring to see that, or to read that the new plugin works largely the same way. And this is mentioned in the Moodle Translations Filter page. So that means that what I'm going to talk about is hopefully still relevant. I suppose some settings have changed, but it works largely the same way. So once you install those plugins, the first step is to copy over the API key from Google Cloud to Moodle. And on Moodle, you would go to the Content Translation Filters settings, so that you can see that in the breadcrumb at the top, on the screenshot on the right: dashboard, site administration, plugins, filters, Content Translation Filter. And you can copy over the API key over there, and you have to check use Google. I think the default is no. Yeah, and save changes. Then another key step is to set the filter priority. On the Content Translation Filter plugin page, it says that this filter must be at the top of the filter stack. So that's what I've done. I've moved it to the top. Now, I don't want it to be available all through my site. That's a choice. So you can set it at on, off, but available, or just off. But I've selected off but available, so that I can turn it on wherever I want it to work, such as at a course level, or even within a course at the level of resources or activities. The apply to is also a useful setting to consider. So content means the content within a resource. Heading means the title of the resource. So if you say just content, the headings won't get translated, which means on the course homepage, it might look more or less the same even after changing the language setting. So I'll tell you a little more about that shortly. I've selected content plus headings for more comprehensive translation. Check the language packs. So the languages, the destination, that's the right word, languages that you want the learners to use, check that they are installed. Google will translate, Google will translate largely anything to anything, I think. But you need to have the language packs installed on your Moodle site, whatever you want people to use. This is our case. at INASP, we have at the moment just put in these few languages for testing the automated translation, and yeah, we have sometimes increased the language packs, sometimes reduced them. And as you might know already, a language pack by default is really just the menus and the various settings on Moodle. It's not the actual content that gets translated. That's what the whole point of content translation is. The standard language packs just change the navigation, the various settings, which is useful for sure. Once you set up the content translation filter at the site level, and in my case, I set it to off but available. So I went to this particular course that I wanted to be translated, and I set the content translation filter at the course level. I set that to on. If you've not used filters, there's actually a lot you can do with filters on Moodle. So I'll leave you to explore that. Sometimes we look for a certain setting, and we go to the edit settings, and we find that the setting we're looking for is not there. But there's a chance that what you're looking for is in the filter setting, which is separate from the course level or activity level settings. Every course and every activity has a separate setting in the administration block called filters. So content translation filter also sits there. Now, so here's a view of how it works. So I've set all this up, and on the left is the original, the homepage of this academic writing skills course, mini course. I changed the language pack to Vietnamese, and immediately within, well, just the time it takes to refresh the page, I see most of it in Vietnamese. Course name and most of the course resources are translated, the headings. So these are the headings. This is what is called heading in the content translation filter. The thing is, I have set the content translation filter to on for some items that are at the top, and off for some other items. That is my choice. I just wanted to experiment how it worked. So yeah, it's like boom, it just gets translated within just in a second. And here's an example of a page of content from a book resource translated from English to Vietnamese. Again, on the left, it's English, and changing the language interface to Vietnamese. In the top, kind of the banner part of the page, right away, the whole thing is translated into Vietnamese. So that's how it works. Very, yeah, it's quite dramatic how how easy how fluidly it works. But well, there's some fine print. What gets translated and what doesn't. The good news is pretty much any text that sits in the Moodle text editor. That's my experience. If it's in the Moodle text editor, it gets translated. H5P activities, in my experience, they don't. That content doesn't sit within the Moodle text editor. It is created in the content bank or h5p.com, and it's kind of brought in. I noticed that H5P did not get translated. So that could be, yeah, that is a limitation. If there's a lot of H5P content in a course and you want to make it compatible with this method, I don't know. Maybe you'll have to explore further. In my case, the course that I'm talking about, it didn't have many H5P resources, and whatever there was, I kind of converted it into some other format, or to maybe do away with some small quiz, interactive questions. Yeah. So book, page, quiz, database, glossary, they're all compatible. Forum posts, I think it's a little tricky. It does get translated, but it can get confusing if I guess there has to be some kind of structure. Let's say the language interface is English, but I don't know, someone writes in Vietnamese, Now, how does that work? So ideally, if the language interface is English, the person writing has to write in English, so it gets translated into Vietnamese. So maybe there's got to be some advice or instructions might be needed. I have not tried this yet. I just know they get translated, but I could also see the potential for confusion with this. Bootstrap is there are Bootstrap elements that you can use in a Moodle course. Anything, I guess, anything after Moodle 3.9 or even prior versions. Bootstrap elements are a great way to introduce some interactive content such as collapse or accordion, yeah, so they get translated. Now, there are ways to make adjustments to translated content. So you might want to mark some content that should not be translated, especially if it's something to do with language teaching. So that there's an easy way to do that, to mark that content or any string with translate equals no in a span tag. That means it doesn't get translated. In the image at the bottom, you'll see that the first sentence is in Vietnamese, and after that it's in English, because those two sentences were marked as not to be translated. You can also edit the translated content using another plugin called Content Translation Manager, where they work together, Content Translation Filter and Manager. So when you install these two plugins, you will see that when you're on any language interface apart from the source language, a little icon will appear at the end of any page with translated content. And if you click that, you will see the Content Translation Manager, which looks something like this. It's a pop-up with source text, the text in the original language on the left, which cannot be edited here. But what it can do is edit the translated content, which appears in the Moodle text editor. So you can edit that translated content if you know translate the language of the translated content. If you are proficient in that and you spot awkward translations, yeah, you can go ahead and edit, fix some of those awkward bits. That's totally possible, and save it, and that's what is stored in Moodle, and that's what is presented to the learner. So if there are any JavaScript elements in the content, and that's another way to include interactive Moodle, the Moodle text editor supports JavaScript. So they might not get automatically translated. In the course I'm talking about, academic writing skills, there were some activities that we built in with JavaScript, which are presented in the book resources. So it was a bit of work to get that to work. Going into the translation manager, switching it to code view, and kind of looking up the translations on Google Translate, because I don't know Vietnamese, so I had to look it up on Google Translate, the regular Google Translate, copying, putting it in. Yeah, that took a little bit of time. It can be done. So that's about adjusting translations. Now for the second part of my talk. How did the learners, what did they think? And they were native speakers of Vietnamese. So what did they think of the quality of translated content? So we introduced, we explained how this would work, how to view the course content, basically by switching the language setting on the Moodle homepage, the course homepage. And we clarified that the translations are provided by Google, in that we didn't, while we were providing this, we weren't taking, we couldn't be responsible for the quality. There were 86 participants from Vietnam who went through this course, Academic Writing Skills, and then we collected feedback. And I'm going to show you some of the feedback questions and the responses as we received them. So first we asked them which language did they choose. They knew they could go through the module, the various resources in Vietnamese. It turned out that, in fact, most participants, 48 out of 86, actually chose English, just perfectly fine. Maybe they didn't need to learn in Vietnamese. They were proficient speakers of English. Yeah, so it's more, then I'm going to present the feedback from the 38 of those who did go through some or all of the module in Vietnamese from this point on. So here is a question, one question. When going through the translated content, did you spot any awkward, unclear, or incorrect words or phrases? And very few said frequently, but a lot of people said occasionally, about half, 18 out of 38 said they occasionally spotted awkward, unclear, or incorrect wording. Some said rarely, a few said never. So it means, well, it's occasional that this, it's neither great nor terrible. If there were any awkward or unclear or incorrect words or phrases, did they interfere with your ability to make sense of the content? So again, somewhat good news. Only a few said it was significant. It was a significant problem, and about half the learners said to some extent, and in fact, yeah, quite a good number said no, it didn't interfere. So they did spot some awkward, incorrect translations, but it didn't affect their ability to understand what the content. Was there ever a point when you felt that the quality of translated content was quite poor in general? So this is quite a strong question, that they ever get fed up, or yeah, well, most people said no. So that's good. Some said yes. 13 out of 38 said yes. 25 out of 38 said no. They never felt that it was quite poor in general. And here's one more question. Did you find it beneficial to go through the content in your language? So this is quite a review, even though so far it seems like the feedback has been somewhat mixed, it looks like most participants, the vast majority, 32 out of 38, they said yes, it was beneficial to go through the content in their language, in Vietnamese. And I doubt they went through all of it in Vietnamese, but maybe they switched back and forth. It's fine. So maybe I think they it was a useful feature. That's my inference. And the free text feedback is more revealing about their experience. So here's some of the excerpts I will leave. You can read it on this slide. I found this one very interesting. The third one, someone said, I can use an English dictionary when I get a new word in English, but I can't use Vietnamese dictionary. I suppose they meant when they see an awkward word in Vietnamese and they're like, what's that word doing there? But they can't use a dictionary at that point because it's already in Vietnamese. So I found that quite interesting, that comment. So it's mixed. Again, it seems like what seems to be the case is the participants were appreciative, but they wouldn't say it was extremely useful. It was, yeah, somewhat useful. So I would say on the whole, leaning towards, somewhat positive experience. Yeah, so we also had, yeah, I guess, and also we have to remember that most participants actually opted to go through the course in English. So overall impressions of mine, I think technically it works well. Moodle's content translation filter, whether the one I used or the new one that will soon be available on the plugins database, and Google Cloud Translation, they work well together. It's quite a nice experience to be able to see not just resources, but activities, and you can easily move through different, use different languages to go through the course. In my case, yeah, the focus here is on Vietnamese. Most participants seem to appreciate having the option to go through the content in Vietnamese. They also, however, found some level, not to say a lot, some found it, that it was significant. Most found it, there was some level of awkward, unclear, or incorrect words or phrases in the translated content. And I'm sure Google Cloud Translation likely works better for some languages than others. I don't have feedback from any other group of learners at this point. So this is, yeah, this is, that's all. I hope this was useful. If you're looking to kind of use automated translation. It does work, but it's good to get feedback from the learners and to check a few things, whether things are getting translated in your content the way you want them to be translated. So any questions? I think we have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ravi Murugesan. So, sir, as you've opened it, this session is now open for the question and answer portion. So for everyone, as what you did earlier, you may post them on the forum or on the chat box. So for our Facebook and YouTube viewers, we enjoin you to make use of the comment section and post your questions there. So do we already have questions? Okay, so we have a feedback here from Ms. Cheryl that Ravi's talk is very interesting. So we can try converting our content to Filipino or Tagalog. So we have a live stream of the talks in FB and YouTube channel of NifilaWeb. So you can find the recording there.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have questions? Okay, so there being none, sir, at this point, I believe the talk was very clear to our audience and participants. So it is high time that we present, of course, and express our gratitude to you, sir, for presenting today. So allow me to present you the Certificate of Appreciation, which reads, NifilaWeb Technology Incorporated presents this Certificate of Appreciation to Mr. Ravi Murugesan for sharing his valuable knowledge and experience to the participants of the Moodlemoot Philippines 2022. This conference aims to bring together the Moodle community of practitioners and users to share experiences, research achievements, and innovative development using the most widely used open source learning management system, Moodle. Given this 28th day of July 2022, held virtually via Zoom video conferencing, signed by Ms. Cheryl Villaraman, MSIT, President and Chief Executive Officer of NifilaWeb Technology Incorporated, the only Moodle partner in the Philippines. So once again, a round of applause, please, for Mr. Ravi Murugesan. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor.